Magandang gabi po mga katipon sa Pilipinas. Ito po ang Ating Katipunan, muling sumasa inyo mga tagapakinig upang magbigay ng mahalagang impormasyon, magbigay liwanag at higit sa lahat makinig sa inyong mga daing at kuro-kuro hinggil sa mga problemang patuloy na nagpapahirap sa ating kalagayan at kabuhayan. Sa susunod na 2 oras, sisikapin po namin ipaliwanag ang iba-ibang bahagi ng ating ekonomiya at ang mga mabibigat na local and international issues na may malaking epekto sa ating buhay at kinabukasan. Ito po ang inyong katipon na si Butch Valdes. Kasama po natin dito si Itos Valdes ng Philippine LaRouche Society at ng Save the Nation Movement. Kami pong dalawa ay kasama rin sa Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. Kami po dito ay nag-aanyaya sa inyo na makibahagi sa ating talakayan sa pagsusuri ng mga kasalukuyang problema at paghahanap ng kaukulang solusyon. Okay, Itos, maya-mayang konti meron tayong mahalagang panauhin. No?
Yes.
We will be joining us via Zoom, no? At last week ang pinakita natin na isa pong video hinggil sa kanyang pagbubunyag warning na magkakaroon daw, baka daw magkaroon ng isang coup d'etat. Coup sa bansang Amerika bago po o immediately after the elections in November 3. Napakabigat pong paratang ito, but the person that they're talking about is State Senator Richard Black. Dati po siyang state senator, but he is also Colonel Richard Black. Siya po ang head dati ng legal division ng US Army na housed in the Pentagon at that time at during one of his. So meron po siyang connection at kaalaman dito sa mga paggagalaw ng mga iba-ibang mga paksyon dito sa US Army, US sa White House, no, pati na rin sa Armed Forces of the Philippines. So
United States.
Sa United States, no. Bakit po natin kailangan malaman kung kasi napakalaki pong impact ito kung mangyayari man yan. Kung dito sa ibang bansa, katulad sa Pilipinas, katulad sa Thailand, iba pang bansa, pag nagkaroon ng coup d'etat, headline na yan.
Right.
Dahil pangaagaw ito ng gobyerno. Can you imagine if that coup d'etat is implemented, no, and done in the biggest, most powerful country in the world? You see the impact. Malaki pong impact ito, both not just in politics, in international politics, but also on the world economy. Because we don't know how this will impact on the world economy, no? And the US economy as well, of course.
Yeah.
So maya ng konti na mag-aayusan tayo ng technicals.
Around 8 o'clock.
Mga alas 8 po na makakapanayan po natin siya. In the meantime, Itos, ano bang nasa atin?
Well, I think we should start off with what's happening again sa mundo, no? Primarily sa US. So we can play a video. Kaibigan po natin si Liz Wheeler is back. Every week meron siyang parang wrap up na yung mga hindi sinasabi sa atin ng mainstream media. Marami po yun, not just in the United States but all over the world. Maraming hindi sinasabi sa atin ng mainstream media. As you know, November 3 na po, US elections, presidential elections. Malapit na po. We have about 20 days or so.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's heating up.
November 3 yun.
November 3. So, marami pong kailangan malaman ng tao. and marami pong development. So let's play that video of Liz Wheeler and then we can react to it also. Okay.
The 5 stories the mainstream media refused to report to you this week. A grand jury in the state of Texas indicts Netflix on charges of child pornography after Netflix aired the movie Cuties, which portrayed 11-year-old girls in graphic sexual positions, showed the children sexually touching themselves, featured up-close crotch shots of the little girls, and in one scene, revealed the naked breast of one of the children. The new indictment says Netflix knowingly promoted visual material that, quote, depicts the lewd exhibition of the genitals or pubic area of a clothed or partially clothed child who was younger than 18 years of age at the time the visual material was created, which appeals to the prurient interest in sex and has no serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value, end quote. But did the mainstream media report this to you? Barely. And when they did, they made sure to mention that Netflix stands by the film. California Governor Gavin Newsom's office tweeted, and I quote, going out to eat with members of your household this weekend? Don't forget to keep your mask on in between bites, end quote. In between bites, can you even imagine eating a bowl of soup and every time you chew, you put your mask back on? These politicians wielding absolute power over our lives are absolutely insane. But did the mainstream media report on this? No. The mainstream media was too busy having a conniption fit because President Trump removed his mask while on a balcony by himself. So the mainstream media said nothing about Governor Newsom. The Pope blames quote-unquote failed capitalism for the economic destruction we are now facing thanks to the government-mandated COVID lockdowns. Now, this is obviously ridiculous. The loss of tens of millions of jobs is not the result of failed capitalism. It's not the result of the virus even. It's a result of government-mandated lockdowns forced on us by power-crazed politicians. In fact, according to the American Enterprise Institute, there was an 80% reduction in world poverty between the years 1981 and 2018. The global poverty rate fell from 42.3% to 8.6%, thanks to capitalism. But did the mainstream media report that? Nope. The mainstream media ignored the facts, but we're only too happy to talk about the Pope's ignorant condemnation of capitalism. New York City police officers, at the behest of New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, target Orthodox Jews in the name of COVID-19. Keep in mind, these were outdoor gatherings of Orthodox Jews, and the police forcibly dispersed them in the name of COVID-19. Meanwhile, the NYPD did nothing to disperse the Black Lives Matter rioters and protesters who were also in the streets of New York, damaging private property and attacking cops. But did the mainstream media report on this specific targeting of religious Jews? Nope. The mainstream media is in the pocket of the left, and the left is becoming more and more blatant in their anti-Semitism. Joe Biden announces again that he supports a national mask mandate. Yep, a national mask mandate, which means it could be a federal crime if you do not wear a mask. So we already can't go to church. Christians are being arrested in Idaho for being outside without masks on. Orthodox Jews were dispersed in New York City over masks. And now Biden wants the federal government to be the enforcers of these draconian dictates. But did the mainstream media report on this? The mainstream media barely mentioned it. Since the mainstream media refuses to report any of that to you, I will.
Mention or we didn't discuss was the debate of Mike Pence and Kamala Harris
And Kamala
also.
Harris. Yeah.
And Trump getting cured from COVID
Yeah.
right away. After 3 days lang po, wala na pong balik na naman si Presidente Trump. And wala na masabi po yung mga taga CNN or mainstream media kundi masyado siyang nagpapakahari or he's acting like a king. Yun lang ang nasabi nila. In fact, may mga video po sa internet na nagsasabi rin na nagko-complain yung mga mainstream media bakit sana may sakit talaga si Trump Sana mas malubha si Trump. And then Nancy Pelosi
Yeah.
came out, yung Speaker of the House, and I think Chairman will react to that, putting out the 25th Amendment, trying to put out the 25th Amendment sa US and saying Trump is not fit to serve anymore.
Right.
You want to react?
Yung Amendment 25 po sa Constitution ng Bansang Amerika, basically it says that if the people in government already perceive the president to be incapacitated to run, as means baka hindi na tama ang pag-iisip, baka masyadong mahina na, hindi siya makapagtrabaho, at baka ito sa COVID ngayon, merong kapasidad ang legislature, tsaka pati na rin yung mga cabinet members, pagsasama sila, i-declare that the president is incapacitated and the vice president or yung succession
Takes over.
will take over. Now, ito, ginagawa na naman ng ni Nancy Pelosi. Itong Nancy Pelosi yung Speaker of the House ng Democrats. Now, walang paki kung parang wala na siyang, she does not,
Crazy Nancy na siya.
it's, yeah, many people call her crazy because she does not react to or do certain things in accordance with what is reasonably correct, no? Or even politically correct. No? She is, I'm sorry to say, but many people call her a bitch. No? Now,
Ito pa
but
yung
why
si
is
Nancy
this?
Pelosi yung nahuli na nagpagupit pero sinutdown niya lahat ng businesses. Tapos nahuli siya sa CCTV, siya nagpapaparlor. Pero
Yeah.
bawal po yun.
if they were supposed to be on lockdown, but she used their power to force a hairdressing salon, no?
To open.
Where she goes to open. No? And so she was seen on CCTV to have gone there and went against basically the her directions, no? That there should be a lockdown. This is the way these people think. No? This is the kind of politics that is now happening and campaigning that's now happening in the United States. According to Trump, he says this is not just an important election coming up. This is the most important election in the history of the United States. And there is this group of people, usually refers to them as the deep state. Trump keeps on calling them the deep state. This group of people, who want to change the whole culture of America. They want to change the whole and the principles by which the country has been established.
Founded, yes.
They never refer to the Declaration of Independence. No? As a matter of fact, they want to leave God out in the
Oath of Allegiance.
Oath of Allegiance of the United States. These are these types of people. They are the same people that want that favor late term abortions. 7 months, 8 months, 9 months bago manganak, pwede pa rin patayin yung bata. No? At mga iba, sabi nila, di pa rin nagiging batas, pero maski na panganak na yung bata, kung ayaw nung nanay, meron din siyang kapangyarihan, karapatan para patayin yung anak niya. These are the same people. You can see they're already starting to be demonic, who are advocating the changes that they want in the United States. And the only stumbling block they have here is President Trump.
Yes.
We see this from here in the Philippines, taking in all kinds of intelligence information. Katulad po ng maririnig nyo mamaya when we interview Colonel Black, no? Former state senator. You will hear, these are the types of information we put together and come out with an opinion.
Yeah.
Our opinion does not matter as individuals because we don't vote in the United States. But it matters as human beings. No?
Yes.
Because the US indeed has tremendous impact on the rest of the world, right? Including communist China and Russia. A collapse of the US, both politically and economically, will have a tremendous impact on the rest. It will turn the world over and put us in harm's way, definitely. All countries will be put in harm's way.
Yeah.
And the possibility of war is going to be jumping to a very, very high
Increased tension.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
I wanted to add, Chairman, itong presidente, maalala po natin, we played also yung mga reactions during the Republican National Convention where Trump accepted the nomination to run for president. Maalala po dyan na lahat ng nagsalita po dyan, sinasabi si Trump is the most pro-life president they've had, the US has ever had. And I think lahat ng policy po niya, pagbaba ng mga pharma bills, medicine bills para sa lahat across the board.
He ordered the decrease of the prices of medicine across the board.
Hindi lang discount, talagang binabaan niya yung presyo para because may COVID nga. Number one. Number two, yung Born Alive bill na the executive order that says all unborn when they're born, all children, all babies will have the right to be given support and medical assistance, health support.
Yeah.
Lahat across the board. Kasi may pera ka o wala, may insurance ka o wala. Kailangan pag nanganak ka, karapatan mo po ng isang bata at yung magulang niya na humingi ng tulong.
They're entitled to government support.
Yes.
All children born
alive,
alive are entitled to medical support. Ganyan po itong presidenteng ito.
Tapos yung yung appointment niya kay Amy Coney Barrett
yes,
sa Supreme Court, who is a Catholic, who has 2 children adopted from Haiti, right? And she is known as a defender of the Constitution, but she's also known as a Catholico Sarado, who is pro-life. So, ang pinalitan po niya sa Supreme Court, si Ruth Bader Ginsburg po, yun talagang hindi pro-life yun. Opposite po. And she defended the right of a woman to an abortion, to choose and on with her body. Ibig sabihin, pwede niyang tanggalin yung bata, pwede niyang patayin.
Dito po lumabas yung pro-choice.
Yes. Under her.
Because she claims that the woman
has a
has
constitutional right.
It is a constitutional right of a woman to kill her own baby.
Yes.
To kill her own unborn baby.
Yes. And during this presidency also, sabi po ni Trump, tatanggalin niya po yung funding ng Planned Parenthood. Malaki po yun. Kasi yung Planned Parenthood po, yung one of the biggest pro-abortion organizations. Plus,
funding abortion clinics.
Funding abortion clinics. And napatunayan na nagbebenta pa sila ng mga na-aborted na fetus and yung mga tissues, human tissues. So napatunayan po. So ngayon sabi niya tatanggalin na natin yan. So lahat ng ginagawa po ni Trump, hindi po pro-business po si Trump, pero dahil pro-welfare siya, pro-life siya sa mga tao. Ngayon, as a Filipino, tayo dito, Filipino tayo. Gusto po natin ng isang leader ng isang pinaka-powerful nation na magsasabing, hindi, lahat ng tao mahalaga. Lahat ng buhay, ang buhay ng isang tao ay mahalaga.
All lives matter.
All lives matter. So, we need someone like him in the presidency. Kaya po kami, we have this chance to have someone like this.
Yeah, from afar we admire this person because not the way he looks, not the way, but what he does. No? I just want to zero in on that action. By executive order, he cuts down the prices of medicines substantially across the board all over the country. No? Nakakainggit po no? Kasi dito sa atin, no? Parang ayaw ng presidenteng gumalaw towards that direction. Natatakot po siya sa mga oligarchy. Pero dito po sa Amerika, he orders cutting down the price of medicines across the board. And of course, the oligarchy, the pharmaceuticals, the pharma companies are balking and complaining and so on and so forth. But he doesn't give a hoot about their complaints because his focus is on the people of the United States of America. And the ones that are benefiting from his action are not just the Republicans or not just those who politically support him, even the Democrats, even those that are not going to vote for him, are benefiting from his action.
Yes, lahat. That's not, ine-emphasize lang po natin yung ginawa niya in 4 years. Wala pa nga 4 years 3.5 years. 3.5 years. Quarter years. Binabaan niya po, tinanggal, aside from this, emergency investment siya sa a certain pharmaceutical company so that they can discover a cure or a good treatment. Emergency, meaning paspasan niya yung treatment. So number 2, he told the college students that they don't have to pay their school debt for the meantime. He also gave businesses parang emergency cash so that they could pay their employees. Ganun lang yun. Tapos, ang dami pa niyo pong ginawa for this. And you can see his policy is really for the welfare of his country, his nation, no? Para sa lahat. So, this president, sabi nga namin parati na we admire him because he came from the outside. Hindi po siya politiko. Hindi siya Republican talaga, definitely not Democrat. And so kinaaway po niya lahat ng tao doon. Sinasabi nga niya, drain the swamp. So, ang sinasabi niya,
yes, he keeps on saying, drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. Ano po ibig sabihin niyan sa Tagalog?
Bro, ano yung drain the swamp?
Tatanggalin mo yung tubig dun sa pond.
What is a swamp?
Hindi ko alam
Kasi,
huwag mong tatanong yung mahirap na question.
Hindi, yung swamp kasi, para siyang yung maraming mga dumi. Maraming
murky water.
Hindi mo makita sa hindi ko alam kung anong Tagalog term ng swamp. Pero
Sapa yata. Parang
researcher.
Parang ngayon, parang sapa.
So madumi yun, maraming mga
dumi,
maraming mga delikado, maahas, maraming mga baho, maraming langaw, ganon. So hindi siya magandang tignan, pero maraming nangyayari sa ilalim.
Kaya para ma-drain, para malinis at makita mo ito, lilitaw yung mga dumi at ng mga masasamang hayop dyan, tsaka kailangan gumawa ka ng paraan para mababawasan yung tubig. Pag nawala yung tubig, lilitaw. This is called draining the swamp. Of course, Trump uses this figuratively, na, that itong gagawin niya ngayon, gagawa na siya ng hakbang at ginagawa niya na po ngayon na lalabas at lalabas itong mga taong may kasalanan sa bansang Amerika. No? Isa dyan, ito nang sila Hillary Clinton saka sila Obama. Pinaghahandaan na po ang mga kasong ipapataw sa kanila. Dahil ang sinasabi ng nag-iimbestiga at ang sinasabi na si Hillary Clinton daw ang isa sa mga namumuno na gumawa ng storya na isangkot si Trump nung nakaraan eleksyon, isangkot si Trump sa Russia, na ang Russia daw ang tumutulong at nagbibigay ng intelligence report kay Trump para tulungan siyang manalo. Yung storyang yan na ginamit nila kay Trump as soon as he got elected last 2016 is completely false. And of course, Trump kept on denying this. And what they were coming up with, they were coming up with paid and mercenary so-called witnesses who will lie outright that they heard Trump say this and they did this. Okay. Now, this particular plan, of which Obama was also familiar with, this particular plan that created by Hillary Clinton is now going to be surfaced because the documents regarding this and the indictment papers are now being prepared. Kakasuhan na siya ngayon at sasabihin sa kanya she has to go to jail pag nagkaroon ng probable cause na itong mga paratang sa kanya. Why? How did this happen? Well, tandaan nyo, after this paratang nila about Trump being held by the Russians, they came up with another accusation to try to impeach Trump in Ukraine. Another false accusation. Impeach Trump. And the lower house, kumukontrol ng Democrats yan, were able to pass that impeachment proceedings. But it has to be ratified by the Senate. And the Senate took a look at it and said it was all hogwash. So they did not succeed in impeaching Trump. So he sits as president. Now he's got the power. Now he's got the levers of power that he can use to investigate these people and bring out all of the liars that have been conspiring to try to get him out.
Plus the Supreme Court.
Plus
Supreme Court.
Plus, of course, the Supreme Court. Yung
ito, may nahanap ako. Swamp.
Swamp.
Sa Google, sabi ng Google, swamp is Latian. Latian, but it's more of la swamp in your mind. So, lusak. The word is drain the lusak. Or lati. Or pinak. So, yun
yung lalalim naman yan.
Tagalog word, sabi ng Google, what is a swamp? So, yun.
In Tagalog yan, in Filipino.
In Filipino. English to Filipino. So, yung gusto niyang yung lati really means a bog, marshland,
a
swamp, or a quagmire.
Right.
So, sa mga ganito, hindi mo nakikita yung ilalim, hindi maliwanag, hindi klaro yung tubig, hindi malinis, madumi, Parang yung ano natin, yung gobyerno natin, maduming-madumi. Hindi mo alam kung ano ba talaga nangyayari.
Ay, walang nagde-drain ng
Walang
swamp natin.
kasama siguro.
Dinadagdagan pa nga ang tubig para wag makita eh,
Oo,
di ba?
ang dami kasing gumagalaw dyan sa baba.
Lumalalim yung swamp natin.
Lumalaki yung buhaya.
Pero si Trump, dinedrain niya yung swamp niya, okay? So, etong kay Hillary, etong kakasuhan sila, lumabas na ang pangalan ni Hillary. This is not just an intelligence report.
Yeah.
This is a media report.
Oo,
no?
already.
That's already coming out.
Kasi
no?
yung mga emails niya lumabas.
Tignan niyo po yung isang television station, One American News. OAN. One American News. At makikita nyo, mas balanse po yung mga pakita doon. Yung mga iba, CNN, mga basura yan. CNN,
huwag niyo nang panoorin yan.
CNBC, ABC,
Yes.
maski pa rin yung ibang Fox News, no? Ito na lang, sa akin po, I recommend, no? But you can only watch it in
Internet.
YouTube, in the internet.
Yes.
No? Pero lumalabas naman. At hindi lang itong kay Hillary. Marami pa ang lalabas. Pati yata yung pagkapatay ni kay Jeffrey Epstein.
Lahat lalabas yun.
At tandaan nyo si Jeffrey Epstein, siya yung meron siyang pedophilia activities, yung mga...
May picture yata tayo with Clinton dyan, di ba?
Meron pa bang dyan?
May Jeffrey Epstein
Si Jeffrey Epstein was jailed, accused for sex trafficking, no? Kasi ang mga nagbebenta siya ng mga babae, high class, ang mga kliyente niya, mga sikat. Ang palaging madalas na bumibisita sa kanya noon si Bill Clinton.
Paano natin alam? Dahil lumabas na po yung, kasi may private jet si Epstein, di ba? Lumabas dun sa logbook. Kasi pag sumakay, kailangan yung mga tao sa airport naglalag. Sino yung kasama sa private jet? Sino yung kasama sa... Madalas, maraming beses lumabas si US President Bill Clinton.
But he was no longer president at the time.
No longer.
No? Pero at least, Bill Clinton, kumukuha ng mga prostitutes daw yan, no? At kung ano yan, regular. Isa pang regular dyan ay si Prince Andrew.
Yan si Clinton.
Ayan si Clinton tsaka si Epstein.
Kasi ito si Epstein, napakayaman, may-ari pa siya ng isang isla, Epstein Island, na medyo, pag nakita niyo po sa internet, medyo weird, medyo strange yung pang-setup, yung mga tinayong mga building doon, hindi mo maintindihan. And then, he would take yung mga VIPs not just in politics, in business, in the academe. Ito yung mga dean, yung may mga Nobel Prize winners pa nga. Nandun sa log niya. Mga kliyente niya, dinadala niya sa isla niya. Sabi niya, enjoy lang. Pero, ang nakapagtaka doon, puro mga underage na babae.
Kasi ang gusto nila mga bata. No? So, yun ang, tsaka kung underage, hindi sila kilala. Hindi sila kilala kasi yung mga teenager, walang pakialam sa mga VIPs, hindi nila alam kung sinong VIP. Kanya yun ang gusto daw nila. Pero etong si Jeffrey Epstein,
malaking skandalo yan.
Nahuli ng mga at na kulong, no? At dinala dito sa yung jail doon.
Sa New York.
Sa New York. Okay.
Habang hinihintay yung trial.
Hihintayin yung trial kasi na-convict na siya, tapos na siya, isasalang na siya sa husgado para malaman ng tunay na kasalanan niya at ang sentensya.
Yan si Prince Andrew.
Yan, Prince Andrew at mayroong kasamang babae na...
Yung babaeng kasama niya dito, siya yung unang-unang nagsumbong.
Siyang whistleblower.
At that time, sabi niya, 16-year-old lang siya. Imagine 16, high school pa lang yan. Imagine, nandun siya. Itong si Prince Andrew, nung na-aresto na si Epstein, siyempre, yung investigador pupunta na, mag-i-investiga na yan. Si Andrew kasama parate. Nag-deny si Andrew, sabi niya, wala akong alam dyan. Pero lumalabas na yung katotohanan. Now, malaking skandalo to kasi siya yung parang bugaw ng mga malalaking tao.
At saka marami siyang alam na sikreto. Ngayon, nung nakulong siya, at naghihintay siyang sa courts, biglang namatay. At ang sinabi, nagpakamatay daw. Tapos, nagbigti. Tapos, nung sa investigasyon, lumalabas na yung CCTV, tsaka yung ilaw, tsaka yung kuryente, at lahat-lahat ba, tsaka yung mga gwardya, nung panahon na namatay siya, ay wala doon. Walang CCTV, walang kuryente, walang gwardya.
Sabi nila, nasira daw yung CCTV, yung gwardiya daw tumingin sa ibang lugar, wala daw. Ibig sabihin, walang nakakita na nagpakamatay ito.
Pero patay. Pero sinabi lang nagpakamatay. Ito po nakakatakot dahil palagay namin mahanap kung sino itong mga nagpapatay kay Jeffrey. At siyempre, yung mga nagpapatay niyan, yung mga merong tinatago, dahil marami siyang alam.
Saka malalaking tao po to, hindi nang pipitsugin na. Kasi bilyonaryo itong si Jeffrey Epstein. Ang kausap niya, mga bilyonaryo rin. Marami siyang litrato kasama si Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, kasama din
yan. Marami pa ho, mga royal family, mga ganun. Yun po yung niya. So, dinadala nito sa isang island, na-convict na siya. Ibig sabihin, may pruweba na human trafficker siya. Na yung mga kabataan, ng batang babae, nadala niya at binubugaw niya doon sa mga matatandang powerful men. Kaya sobrang laking balita nung nagpakamatay daw. Kasi sigurado po kami, obvious naman na
alamang hindi nagpakamatay.
Tsaka maraming alam tong si Jeffrey Epstein sa mga tinatawag natin elite.
They just silenced him. But what is also noteworthy is it seems all of the enemies of the Clintons, all of the whistleblowers that have had something to say against the Clintons, I would say about 95% that had something to say against the Clintons, Hillary and Bill, for some reason or another, over a period of about maybe 10, 15 years, started dying mysterious deaths. They cannot solve the actual death, they cannot pinpoint, but the circumstantial situation here is that they were somehow connected to Bill and Hillary. And they were connected in such a way that they'll be in a position to know certain private information with regard to Bill and Hillary. They were getting eliminated one by one.
And it's about 50 of their close associates in the beginning. And it's
50? Wow.
And one of the, yung 2016 po, alala po natin, ito 2016, namatay yung isang tinatawag na Seth Rich. Si Seth Rich po, sinasabi nila suicide din. Suicide. So, sino ba tong si Seth Rich? And you can research this. Unsolved po yung kanyang pagkamatay, pero hindi sinasabi nila suicide. Staff member po siya ni Hillary Clinton. Okay? And Sabi nila na he is responsible for all yung emails niya na lumalabas ngayon. Okay, so he knew lahat ng email kasi nandun sa mga email ni Hillary Clinton. Kasi si Hillary Clinton apparently hindi gumagamit ng as Secretary of State. She didn't use what they call a secure server.
Right.
So ginagawa niya Gmail, parang pinapakalat niya, wala siyang pakialam sa national security.
Kampante siya na
Hmm.
hindi makikita kasi nasa poder sila.
Yeah.
Isipin nyo, ang after State Secretary of State si Hillary, tumakbo na siyang presidente.
Yes.
At ang iniisip niya magiging presidente siya kaya hindi niya pinoproblema itong mga security na mga email.
Oo.
Pero andun lahat ng mga sa email, lahat pati na yung pagpapatay sa kay Gaddafi sa Benghazi,
Lahat.
na nagbigay siya ng utos na pabayan mong mamatay yung ambassador ng Amerika dyan. Si whatever. Because sa Benghazi, yung ambassador ng US doon sa embassy, inatake ng mga naging ISIS itong mga Al-Qaeda, no? At dahil dito hindi nagpasadala ng tulong si Hillary Clinton, no? Kasi ang ambassador po sa ilalim ng State Department yan no? So humingi siya ng tulong, hindi siya nagpadala. At sinabi niya sa kanyang email, pabayaan mo nang mamatayan, no? She in effect said it, no? And there is a very damning evidence in regard to this, no?
Yeah.
So these are the types of information that are now going to surface and allow the investigators
And
to file the
prosecute them,
charges,
right.
to prosecute, no? And for her to face the courts.
Ngayon po, ito matagal na po kasi since remember po pag may time po kayo, tingnan niyo po sa YouTube. Magandang there is a video of the debate, the final debate of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And then in that debate, sabi ni Hillary Clinton, let us not elect something like Donald Trump to the presidency. Alam mo hirit ni Donald Trump? Because if I win, you will be in jail. Sinabi ni Donald Trump noong 2016 yun. Ibig sabihin, alam na nila. May ebidensya na. So all of this time, ngayon, the last month and a half, talagang lumilitaw. And towards nearing the election, which we expect this week pa nga, may lalabas ng mga pruweba.
We're expecting this coming week, almost every day, every other day, you will see some bombshell information that news is going to come out. Others are saying, why is it that it's coming out now? It's election time and so on and so forth. Well, Trump has been asking for the investigation to be completed way before the election time. But of course, they needed to be sure. They needed to be the investigation, and he was still being charged.
Ukraine,
impeachment and so on and so forth. So he was still on the defensive. But now he's no longer on the defensive, so they can go full blast on the investigation. And this is what is coming out now. It's not just Hillary. It's not just Obama. By the way, Obama is also in deep shit. Excuse the term, but he is.
Excuse my French.
But and several other people that are very. Yan si Comey ng FBI, si Brennan ng CIA, and
marami pang masasampot pa dyan. Kasama na si Pelosi,
yung mga lahat, si Biden,
kasama na si Biden.
Lahat lalabas sa kanila.
Si Trump, sabi niya po, ito daw, siyempre, minsan si Trump likes to exaggerate. But when he says, this is the biggest political crime now in American political history. Mas malaki pa to sa, alala po natin si Nixon, yung Watergate. Watergate na yan?
Yeah,
Watergate
Watergate.
scandal. Na he was spying on the Democratic Party daw. Ito pinakamalaki daw because it shows that a sitting president directed or knowingly approved a plan to destroy an incoming president before he sat in office with false accusation. Kumbaga, nag-imbento sila ng mga kasinungalingan. And
A
alam
lot
ko,
of lies.
up to Obama. Kaya po, takot na takot sila. And I think our guest will answer a lot of those questions. One of those things, you want to
Yeah.
say, sige.
No, I just wanted to say that that's why with all of this garbage that will be surfacing as the swamp gets drained, you can imagine what type of desperate actions will these people try to do in order to prevent Trump from being re-elected as the president of the United States. They can try to assassinate him.
Right.
They can try to effect a coup, like what
Our guest will say.
our guest will be explaining later on. Or they can just delay and delay the proceedings so that he will not be allowed to sit. Of course, the cheating is there already, but they're not too sure that they can cheat their way here because marunong din naman magdepensa no? Pero hindi natin alam kung gaano kalakas, gaano kagaling, gaano ka efficient ang cheating mechanism.
Right.
Tandaan nyo, si George Soros is very much involved in this thing, no? Lalo na dyan sa cheating mechanism na yan. Lalo na dito sa mga pinopondohan na ng rioters. No?
Yes.
He's very much involved in that thing. No? So you're not sure, and nobody is really sure whether Trump will survive this physically. No? Because everybody knows now, the whole United States knows now, including many Democrats know now, the level of evil that these Democrats and the rest that are going against Trump are willing to implement and use. Now, that's why, and all the time, why are we interested in this? Because it involves the whole world.
And we just want to add, this COVID thing, this COVID situation is not separate from what is happening now in the United States and the election. Lumalabas at lumalabas na itong COVID, itong sinasabi nilang disease, itong remember po remember, ito lang kailangan yung maalala. Out of the 200,000 plus deaths, reported deaths sa US, only 6% of that is due to COVID. And out of that 6%, most are elderly already.
This one is direct COVID.
Direct COVID.
The others are
94% comorbidities.
Comorbidity. Ano po yung comorbidity? Meron kang diabetes, tapos na-hospital ka, tapos napatawan pa ng COVID, no? Dahil bumagsak ka na. So that is comorbidity. Meron ka ng underlying conditions.
Yeah.
You had the heart condition, and then you were supposed to be hit by COVID. So these are the things, mababa na resistensya mo dahil dito sa sakit. No?
Imagine kung nagpa-test ka pero may sakit ka na, may fever ka na. Syempre, positive. Tapos ililista nila yon as COVID. Number 1, yan lang po. Number 2 po, according to their own statistics po, yung sa US CDC, Center for Disease Control, yung rate of survival po ng lahat if treated properly of COVID, nakita nila and nilabas nila pero quiet lang, is 99.5% of all age range from 0 to 79 years old. Okay? 99.5 on an average. Okay? So, survival rate, kung may COVID ka na. Yan lang po kailangan yung tandaan. Kasi, hindi naman sa amin tong research. This is already the US CDC. Hindi lang ni-report ng mainstream media, hindi ni-report dito sa DOH, Inquirer, Manila Bulletin, kahit sino dito, GMA, TV5. None of them report these things. Because they are waiting for the press release of WHO and DOH. Yun lang po ang news on COVID. No independent anything. So that's what you have to remember. So, and if you challenge, like the group, diba? PH doctors, Philippine doctors for early treatment and prophylactic treatment, ayaw nila. Pinagalitan pa nga sila ni Anyo, di ba? Sabi nila, or Eleazar, sabi niya, papa-investiga pa daw nila yan, grupong yan. Why are they saying other things? That's not government. Why do they know more about COVID than DOH, than Duque?
But the concern about these COVID things, it's not just the fact that it is a disease that is supposed to be contagious, and now we're learning that the recovery rate is very high, 99.5% or whatever. No? It's not just that we're saying, oh, we're being lied to and so on and so forth. It's the fact that whether it is a lie or not, somehow it has affected whole economies. The economy of the United States and the economy around the world. Somehow the reaction to this, to say lockdown, MGCQ, GCQ, no, have an effect on the world economy. That, again, not just the United States, but definitely the United States, because it has a very big, it is the biggest economy in the world. And then second is China. Now, if this, remember, the US is also the biggest importer of the world. Much of what we can produce here, we try to export to the United States. A lot of what is produced in China, they try to export to the United States because it's the biggest consumer country in the world. And then the other big one is, of course, Europe. No? So we're in that situation. This economic dive, no? this deterioration of economic conditions is causing a lot more deaths than you can imagine that COVID will cause. When these people like Bill Gates talk about so many million people dead, in his mind, it is not the disease that was causing this death. It is the economic downturn, the deterioration, the disintegration of the economy. Now, is this contrived or not? We don't know, and we cannot make any real conclusions now. But you cannot dismiss the fact that it might be contrived. Why? Because the deep state that Trump is referring to will have to create the conditions of economic deterioration to bring down the capacity of every sovereign nation state to survive, to keep its integrity as a republic. You cannot do that if your economic situation is destroyed. So what is it that they want destroyed? Why? Because if there is a destruction of economic conditions of these countries, United States, and the rest of the world with it,
Right.
there will be resulting chaos and possibly wars. And the entry point of those that will suggest that we have a one world government, because it will be more expedient to set up a one world government to rule over the rest, or else there will be wars and order, a new world order that they want to impose. If you look at it from that standpoint, you will see that there is reason, that this is not accidental. If you look at it from the standpoint that yes, economies are going to collapse and the diseases will set in because we did not prepare our economies for this in the previous years. In the last 50 years, we could have set up all of the infrastructure that will prepare for us. Yes, but the fact of the matter is, as of now, we know they did not do. And the weakness is such that it will be more susceptible to these contrived ideas. So, the destruction of the world economy started 50 years ago, yes, that we ourselves are not going to be having an infrastructure related to health, education, and energy. Over the years, we didn't prepare, yes. But this was done by the thinkers of those who, by as early as 50 years ago, wanted to come up with this situation of a new economic order, new world order, wherein they will dictate on the rest of the world. We have to look at this, consider this process, and we hope. Right now, the only one that when he says the most important election in the history of the United States, and I would like to say the most important election for the whole world in our time, is this election that's going to be held in November 3. And all the enemies of mankind will be using their forces to try to stop that singular person is considered the stumbling block to the new world order. Yes.
Okay, so I think we should have our guest, Colonel Senator Richard Black, soon, but I think they're preparing by fixing their camera. In the meantime, I wanted to ask Chairman. So where do you see how do you see
The Philippines?
No, not the Philippines, but after November 3, what do you see immediately happen? Definitely, it looks going to be messy. But how do you think they plan to resolve this? And how do you see it happening? You see it going on for several months?
There is a possibility that the results of the election are going to be accepted and questioned. Of course, I can see Trump saying that there was cheating, and there's, in all probability, there was going to be cheating because ginagawa nila this mail-in votes na
Ballots, yeah.
was a window that they wanted to use so that they can pump in fictitious ballots. And if that is not stopped or if that is not neutralized, no, there is a chance that Trump will lose. But from all indications, the people are going to go for Trump. Now, will the Democrats accede to that? I doubt. Why? If you were Hillary Clinton, who is a Democrat, will you accede to it and tell them that you're going to go to jail?
Yeah, no way.
Or Obama?
No.
Did you ever see a president and a State Department secretary go to jail on these kinds of crimes?
Yeah.
Or why is even these military people? No? We're assuming that the military people are straight. But we forget that there is such a thing as a military industrial complex who foment wars because it is a source of a lot of income.
Money and power.
Where the industry and the military leadership conspire so that they will continue these perpetual wars. Isn't that possible? That these military people are also guilty? So now, how much of support will President Trump have? Obviously, he will have support of a lot of people, but I do hope that he's got the support of the key elements of the military. Now, will they try to kill him? They will always try to kill him. Whether he wins, after he wins, and he wins the election and continuously until the next 4 years, I think they will always try to kill him. We can only hope that he will be able to do whatever necessary things he has to do, so that the next leadership in America will continue with that, with what he has done. But if he wins and he is allowed to sit as president, I have a feeling that we will have bought an additional 4 years of peace.
At least.
Additional 4 years of peace. Because it is not in Trump's intention to wage a world war. I do not believe that is. His intention is to bring up the quality of life of all Americans and bring the United States to the stature that it always has had. And of course, hopefully the rest of the nations around the world will also be able to bring that up, because he said so. He said that it is the duty of every national leader to bring up the quality of life of people. And it will be such a much better situation. Everybody was developing it. So that's very Rooseveltian. That's very much like Franklin Delano. And yet, Roosevelt was a Democrat. Trump is a Republican.
But I wanted to say nga ito.
Pwede na ba?
This Senator Black is ready, but I think they're still preparing. The other thing is that what he is saying in terms of a coup, a possible coup led by certain people, retired military personnel, said this last week. That represents what you were calling the military industrial complex, right?
Yeah.
Ito yung mga tao sa mga generals who served under Bush, Clinton, diba? And Obama also.
Yeah.
So yung mismong say that grouping, cabal, maybe, calling that. I naalala ko po, remember in the second term of Franklin, there was this ex-general, Smedley Butler.
Butler.
And then he he was recruited to lead the veterans of World War One. Their plan was told that they would go to the White House, magra-riot po sila sa harap ng White House. This was in 1930, 30,
38 siguro.
36. And they would go inside and drag President Roosevelt out or kill him. Yeah. And before this plan could be in effect, attempted, Smedley Butler lumabas sa TV at parang binaliktaran niya yung or he betrayed yung nagre-recruit
The
sa
movement
kanya.
that wanted a coup.
Yeah, so, and this coup was to be led, and the ones who are financing this coup is supposed to be sila yung mga bankero, yung mga oligarchy at that time. Because remember po, si FDR, many times we've been talking about Franklin. He, in effect, changed the economic system. Not just in the US, pinalitan niya since the Great Depression, and the world later on. So yung mga nawalan ng business, nawalan ng revenue, yung mga nagmamay-ari ng ekonomiya, nawalan.
Right.
So they wanted to take him out to that coup. I don't know if this is a similar and who is funding this, but we can sort of conjecture.
Yeah, we can more get a parallel of this.
And who's
Is
funding them?
Colonel Black available already?
Rock, nandiyan na ba? His camera.
Okay.
No, camera. So he's not moving. That's picture lang.
Maski na audio lang.
Sabi mo, audio lang is fine. He's all online with audio para we can get him. Pero imagine kung hindi nag-betray, if not betray, but if Smedley Butler didn't tell the world of this plan. It is a plan by the money changers,
Right.
And the economic royalists na tinamaan ni Franklin.
Yeah, the very same thing here.
Yeah.
It's a plan by Wall Street. Probably, I don't know. I want to ask Colonel Black about this. What is any kind of coup in this? Will need some sort of
Funding.
an organization and funding.
Malaking
Is Wall Street behind this? And what about the British? The British royalty and the British elite financial institutions. Are they involved in these things? Dahil alam niyo po, the reason I say British, ang British financial institutions or financial oligarchy, that is where the headquarters, the world's money lenders are. Hindi po lahat nandyan sa Wall Street. Wall Street is just their playground. It is their where it's their market. They use it, but the actual headquarters is in.
okay.
Lang.
Oh, let's bring him in.
Okay, let's welcome Senator Richard Black, also known as Colonel Richard Black, who used to be head of the legal department of U.S. Army at the Pentagon, and head of intelligence groups as well. So,
is he on?
Oh, there you go. I don't know if we have, if your video is working, Senator, but at any rate, good morning to you.
Good morning. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you, yes. You just have to, we'll try to increase your volume, but please help us by increase. We only have your picture, but we have a pretty good audio. And I just wanted to inform you, Senator Black, that last Sunday, in our time, we played your
Statement.
video statement with regard to the impending military coup against President Trump that might happen right before the elections in November 3. And we discussed to some extent some of the things that you had said in order for our audience to merely be briefed about what they're going to hear this evening. We have a worldwide audience because we are on the internet, mostly, of course, Filipinos. And we also have a good Filipino listenership in the United States. So we will go into it right away if you don't mind.
Okay, well, that would be good. I just mentioned that I've spent time in the Philippines during the Vietnam War. I was on Mindanao. I was in Longapo, Clark City, Baguio City. Lots of wonderful places and wonderful people. I love the people of the Philippines, and some of my dearest friends are Filipino Americans.
Very good. Well, you've probably visited more places than I have in our country, but that's good to know. And when you were in the service, is that what you're saying, that you were moving around here?
Yes, I was a helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps.
I see.
And so I flew all around the islands, beautiful, beautiful islands. You wouldn't imagine from the air, looking down on the palm trees and the surf, and we would fly just a couple of hundred feet off the ground, and children would come out and wave. It was quite a wonderful time.
Well, Senator, we don't have to wait for the victory of President Trump. I'm personally inviting you to come into the Philippines, and I will take you around.
Well, I would enjoy that. Perhaps one day I will do that.
Yes.
I had a great fondness for the Philippine people, and of course here in Virginia we have Norfolk Naval Base, and there are many Filipinos who have come and settled around Norfolk because of the military connection, the Navy connection.
Yes, yeah.
There were many Filipinos who were part of the U.S. Navy, and they eventually retired, and some have settled around Norfolk. So there's a big community there.
I see. Okay, well, maybe one of these days, if you get back, we'll try to touch base with some of your friends here, Senator.
Well, that would be nice.
Okay, Senator, let me go straight into the issue. As we have been discussing here with Ethos, a coup on a president, we might be hearing usually in other countries. We heard of rumors of a coup in the Philippines, there was a coup in Thailand, and many other smaller countries, of course. But for a coup to happen in the United States is unimaginable. I'm sure you realize that, Senator Black. And it is something that we do have to internalize of this possibility. Is this, as you were saying, that there is such a plan? Can you please elaborate again?
Well, there seems to be a moving consensus that perhaps the military would get involved in ultimately deciding the election. General James Mattis had a conversation with the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, and during that conversation, he said that there may come a time when we have to take collective action against President Trump. And this was recently published by the in a book review that was widely discussed. Bob Woodward, who's a very left-wing commentator, he just put this book out, and it was discussed in New York Times and different places. But the idea of the Secretary of Defense, which General Mattis was at the time, talking to the Director of National Intelligence about the need to take collective action against President Trump is very threatening. And if for some reason he was not talking about a military coup, he should have been more clear about exactly what he meant. Now, it wasn't just that one comment, because more recently we had violent riots in Washington, D.C., and the rioters burned St. John's Church, which is near the White House, and the president used National Guard troops in a very legitimate and lawful way so that they could clear a pathway so that he could walk from the White House to St. John's. And he went there and he held up a Bible to make the point that, first of all, that the government was still in charge, and secondly, that we do not appreciate these rioters, these violent rioters, burning churches, and that we do respect freedom of religion. Now, after he did this, there was a very coordinated action among a number of generals who came out, and General James Mattis is the most prominent of those. Now, just to give you a little background on James Mattis, he resigned as Secretary of Defense immediately after the president ordered a complete troop withdrawal from Syria. And he did that in order to break the chain of command long enough to where the deep state could undermine the president and prevent him from removing the troops. And he was successful in doing that. So we still have troops in Syria. They're there unlawfully, but they still are there. So James Mattis succeeded at that. But right after the president made his appearance at St. John's Church, then James Mattis made a scathing denunciation of the president, and he praised the rioters for their wholesome and unifying demands. Now, these are the same people who are burning cities all over the country. They have occupied Portland for months now, and they conduct regular riots and burnings and lootings and intimidation of people. They actually, part of Seattle, even seceded from the Union, and yet here we have James Mattis irresponsibly referring to the rioters as having wholesome and unifying demands. Well, if that's wholesome and unifying, I would hate to see what bad demands or divisive demands are, because you can't get much worse than that. But afterwards, he went on and he said, we are witnessing the consequences of 3 years without mature leadership. And then he said, we can unite without him. Now he's referring to the President of the United States. So what exactly did James Mattis mean by saying we can unite without him? I think those are very sinister
Yeah.
terms, because
Mhm.
he's not talking about, maybe we could unite better if we had Joe Biden as president.
Right.
He seems to be implying direct action. And what was very telling is that there is a publication, and it's called Defense One. And Defense One published an open letter from two retired lieutenant colonels, John Nagel and Paul Yingling. And in their letter, which was an open letter to General Mark Milley, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and they said that if Donald Trump refuses to leave office at the expiration of his constitutional term, the United States military must remove him by force, and you must give that order. Now, it should go without saying that for officers to urge a coup to overthrow the government of the United States is improper.
Oh.
But the fact is that it was published in this very prominent military publication, Defense One. Defense One is an organization that is sponsored by Boeing and Raytheon and major defense contractors. So you could say, well, maybe this was just two lieutenant colonels who had too much whiskey to drink, and they put together a bizarre letter and sent it off. But when you see it reprinted, it gives it credibility, and it is clearly calling for the overthrow of the government of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a problem. Just to give you a little of my background, I fought in Vietnam. I was a Marine pilot and flew 269 combat missions. And then I fought on the ground, did 70 combat patrols with the 1st Marine Division. And on the last patrol, both of my radio men were killed, and I was wounded trying to rescue an outpost of Marines. So I'm very concerned about the military. Well, I came back after Vietnam, and eventually went to law school and re-entered as a JAG officer, a military lawyer, and I was eventually the chief of the criminal law division at the Pentagon, and so I have a great interest in military legal affairs, and so I look at these things now. Not only the way that this happened right after the riots in Washington, and the comments by General Mattis, within several days we had another statement, and this was issued by General Colin Powell. And now you may recall General Colin Powell very famously waved a test tube of simulated sarin gas at the United Nations, claiming that Iraq was filled with weapons of mass destruction and they were going to destroy the whole world. And anyway, he very deceptively implied that they had this sarin gas, which they never did. And as a result, there were a couple of million Iraqis who were killed, completely innocent people. And so this is who General Colin Powell is. Well, Colin Powell joined in, and he applauded General Mark Milley, and then he led a a group of military officers in denouncing the president, and they made the most scathing remarks. Some of them were quite insulting to the president. We had General John Allen, a Marine Corps retired general, and I spent my time with the Marines. I've shed a lot of blood with the Marines, but General John Allen very arrogantly claimed, he said, Donald Trump isn't religious. He has no need of religion. He doesn't care about the devout except where they serve his political needs. And then he condemned the president for his abject and arbitrary power. And then we had Navy Admiral Mike Mullen, who said, it sickened me yesterday to see security people forcibly and violently clearing a path through Lafayette Square. Well, I'm going to tell you, the only reason that they needed to use any force to move these rioters out of the way is that the president was going to go to this church, which he had a perfect right to do, and he had a right to do it without being beaten by mobs of criminals in the streets. And so again, we had William Perry, a former defense secretary under Clinton, and he said he was outraged at the deplorable behavior of the president and his suppressing peaceful demonstrators exercising their constitutional rights. Well, if you've watched anything on American television, you'll know that you've got people who are smashing windows, who are looting stores, who are burning down parts of cities, who are attacking, physically attacking, beating up individual people, who have no involvement in anything. They're assassinating police officers. There have been dozens of police officers where these Black Lives Matter influenced people just go up and they take out a pistol and they shoot them.
Yes.
So I'm really appalled at these former military officials saying that somehow these rioters are just exercising their constitutional rights. Because there is no right to murder and intimidate other people.
Senator, all of these things that you have mentioned and quoted from General James Mattis, former Secretary of Defense, Lieutenant Colonel Nagel's letter to the Joint Chief of Staff, Colin Powell's public statements, and the same thing with Admiral Mullen. All of these were mentioned not just in passing, but as official declarations by former military officers. Is there a crime being committed in this thing?
Well, here's the thing. The Uniform Code of Military Justice is federal law that governs all military people. It applies to retired military officers, and it prohibits military officers from using contemptuous words against the president. Now, an officer can legitimately say, I disagree with this policy. I think this policy is a bad one. But when they use contemptuous words against the president himself, for example, if I had said, well, I think Clinton is a big jerk, that would be a contemptuous word for me if Clinton were the president at the time.
Right.
You can't do that kind of thing. many of the statements made by these very senior generals violate Article 88 of the UCMJ. They are criminal offenses. I won't tell you exactly which ones because I don't want to be the judge and jury.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was the senior criminal law official for the Army, and I know that every officer, when they are retiring, they are given instruction on Article 88 and how they are prohibited from using contemptuous words. So it is illegal, and I think that action should be taken. Now, one of the things that's really disturbing is that Secretary of Defense Esper has not whispered a single word against this open discussion of a military coup to overthrow the president. He should be taking firm, dramatic action to rein this in. He should be issuing letters of reprimand to these officers. He should be putting those reprimands in their permanent files. He should be yanking their security clearances. All of this he can do administratively. It's very, very possible. And we have General Mark Milley, who gets this letter that's openly published saying that he personally needs to overthrow the government. And I haven't heard a whisper from him about anything. So I'm very troubled by the quality of leadership among the general officers. Many of these officers were raised through the ranks under President Bill Clinton and under President Obama. They're very ideological generals. They're not the old type of generals that you and I grew up with, where their focus was on national defense and,
Right.
raising up the most professional armies they could. Today, there's a distinct political element, and it's something that's really unheard of, I think, in at least in modern military history.
Mm-hmm. Senator, if as you said, there is a crime being committed here, who will instigate or initiate the move towards the indictment of this, I would say, seditious actions against the president?
Well, I view this military action as sort of a plan B. The Democrats are anticipating that we may have some uncertainty about who has won the election. One of the things that is very, very dangerous that was done is that because of the coronavirus flu, they have enacted rules that allow people to send in their votes by mail. Well, the problem with that, of course, is that you can get someone who counterfeits the voting application, and they can simply forge as many votes as they need to win. So I think now, if Trump clearly loses on election night, I think he would step down as president. But if Biden were to lose, if he clearly lost, then the Democrats have held this major meeting called the Transition Integrity Project. It was like a war game among very, very top leaders of the Democratic Party, and they said that what came out of this sort of war gaming out the results of the election, they said that I think it was Mr. Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman. He was acting as if he were the Biden camp, and he said that under no circumstances should Biden concede the election, that they should simply keep running it on. And I think the idea, I didn't hear him say this, but I think the idea is to keep denying that he has lost and hoping that that enough fraudulent votes will come in over time to where he can win. Because typically the Republicans are not involved in voter fraud. Now, there are exceptions, it has happened, but it's very rare. But it's quite common with the Democrats that they get involved in voter fraud. And Hillary Clinton herself has said that under no circumstances, no matter how badly he loses, should Joe Biden concede defeat. He should simply keep going. And it says in this transition project, they said that under the scenario where there is some uncertainty, that perhaps California, Oregon, and Washington might threaten to secede from the United States if Trump took office. And then they made the comment, and they said that then we should just wait and see what the military would do. Now, we have had elections where there was uncertainty before. When Al Gore ran for president, the election was extremely close, and it was finally decided by the Supreme Court. We have a role for the judiciary, for the executive, and for the legislative branches to sort out who the president is. But there is no role whatsoever for the military to play. The role has no constitutional right for the military to get involved, and if they do so, then that simply is a military coup. It is unlawful, it is anti-constitutional, and they will be overthrowing the government in order to create a new form of government.
Yeah, this is Senator Black. That's why I wanted to go back to the comments being made by these former generals and the letters. I'm sure they are fully documented. And they are incendiary remarks being made in among certain circles. If it is true that they are committing a crime as such, don't you think that there should be cases filed against them now, regardless of who wins the elections? Because I think it's still mutually exclusive. Though they're talking about Trump, they're saying that he is incapable, they're saying that he's incompetent, and so on and so forth. And there must be collective action against him. And you have these high-level former military people talking about forcibly taking him out. Now, I am not a lawyer, but I think there is already a crime being committed, and if that crime has already been committed, do we need to wait for the results of the election to do this? Does it mean, for example, that if Biden wins, are they going to be exonerated from that crime?
Well, it is extremely difficult to successfully prosecute liberals and members of what we call the deep state, those who have such enormous power through the CIA, through some of the other intelligence agencies, and they literally control the media. The deep state controls the media from top to bottom, and as a consequence, anyone who is prosecuted is likely to be prosecuted in Washington, D.C., where all of the judges are hard leftist Democrat judges. You can see, like with the Michael Flynn case, he was, of course, he's a member of Trump's staff who was taken out of office in a very unlawful way. And the Department of Justice finally said, look, this was such a terrible prosecution. We even forged documents to prosecute Michael Flynn, and so we're dropping the case. Well, then we had a judge who decided, well, I want to prosecute this guy, and I don't care whether Department of Justice wants to drop it or not. I'm going to prosecute him. And as a consequence, the judge actually hired an attorney to represent himself to the appeals court. And so Michael Flynn's case continues to march along. Now, eventually it's going to be overturned, but I think what they've done, I think the full appeals court has said, well, let's not resolve this case right now, because if we do, then Michael Flynn's going to be out on the campaign trail campaigning for President Trump, and that might tip the balance. So you have a great deal of corruption within the court system that cases have to be brought against the people in Washington, D.C. So it's very hard, unless if you're prosecuting a conservative or a Republican, you can get a conviction. If you're prosecuting a liberal or a Democrat, very, very hard to get a conviction. The District of Columbia is it's over 90% Democrat. And so if you get a jury, you're going to have almost all Democrats, and many of them very ideological people, and they're going to want to prosecute you just because you're a Republican. They want to find you guilty just because you're a Republican. So I don't have a lot of confidence in the ability to prosecute someone successfully in the District of Columbia for crimes they've committed, but I do believe that there are things that can be done and should be done, and they can be done administratively without the need to go to court. And one is that the Secretary of Defense, all of the generals have the power, and in fact, the president has the power to issue administrative letters of reprimand for permanent filing in the officer's personnel file, and they can also take away their security clearances. And I think they should do that. It's a practical step. It avoids the need to go through very difficult prosecutions. But it would also help to tighten up the military and get them back in their proper constitutional place. So I think that should be done.
Okay, Senator Black, my co-host Itos would like to ask some questions too.
Yes.
Good evening, Senator. I would just like to get a sense of how dangerous this what you say about these retired military men, former defense officials, to get a sense of how dangerous it really is. Because I was going through while you were during the interview, I was going through Article 88, but only refers to commissioned officers. So it doesn't refer to retired military officers. If that were so, then how do you think theoretically, if we were going to play a game, how would they do it if the current military is not allowed by their own constitution with the threat of court martial? How would they affect this coup?
Well, if it were to happen, it would happen at a time of considerable chaos. Now, we have information to suggest that there have been cells, Black Lives Matter, Antifa cells, that have been staged around the country, and that they are prepared, if they don't get the result that they want, they're prepared to take to the streets and to begin a series of violent actions all across the state, or across the United States. I have heard that there may be as many as a dozen of these cells in New York City, and that they're prepared to take violent action. And here's the problem: we have something called the Insurrection Act. It's one of the most fundamental of all federal laws, and it allows the president to take action when necessary to restore order. The act was first enacted in 1807, and it's been mentioned in a very prominent publication, Foreign Policy, in June 4th, 2020, when at the same time that these officers were denouncing the president, they discussed the Insurrection Act, and they made they subtly disparaged the relevance of the act as being a 2-century-old law. Well, the Constitution is also an old law, but many old laws are very important. And this Insurrection Act that gives the president the power to quell uprisings has been invoked 22 times since it was first used in 1808. It's been used by President Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Ulysses Grant, Rutherford Hayes, Grover Cleveland, Woodrow Wilson, Herbert Hoover, Franklin Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower, John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, and by George Bush. So the idea of saying, well, this is just some old, outmoded law is rather absurd. I was involved personally in using the Insurrection Act when I was the senior legal official involved in quelling the LA riots in 1992. After there was an arrest and beating of Rodney King, and there was just almost a civil insurrection that went on for months with violent rioters taking over parts of the city, and we used it at that time. But the generals have been sort of implying, they don't precisely say it, but they imply that it would be illicit for the president to use the Insurrection Act. So they have not given him any support whatsoever in the use of the Insurrection Act. And of course, that's what he would have to use if there was violence against the administration. So it is, I think it is a fairly serious threat. Now there was an article published in 2017 in a publication called The Conversation, and it's called Thinking the Unthinkable. Could there be a military coup in the United States? And, you know, it's not simply a human interest story. What it is essentially a blueprint for overthrowing the government of the United States. And it starts with saying that if it were not for the military coup of the officers in Algeria back in 1958, General Charles de Gaulle never would have been president, and there never would have been a Fifth Republic. So they make it sound like, well, you know, a coup's not all that bad a thing. And then they go on and they lay out the strengths and weaknesses of the government. Interestingly, one of the things they say is one of the challenges for an insurrection is that the U.S. gun control laws mean that there is a problem because the citizens of the United States are pretty heavily armed. And they're trying everything. They're trying to do everything possible to disarm the public, and there's been quite a push to increase the gun control laws. But anyway, they talk about that as a problem. But this article goes on and it says it's necessary not only to secure Washington, D.C., but also Manhattan and parts of Los Angeles. And they say that the most critical thing is to shut down all communications across the United States through a nationwide blackout. And they said, well, this might seem pretty far-fetched, but the U.S. is very vulnerable to a cyber attack. And they say that that should come from the U.S. Cyber Command, and that the cyber attack can be staged to make it look like it came from a foreign enemy. And that by saying that we're being attacked under a cyber attack from China or Russia or some other place, that gives the government a pretext for sending troops out into the streets and to take control and perhaps even impose martial law. But they discussed the need to get control of the National Military Command Center in order to, because that's where all troop movements have to pass through. But it says that it can be done if we have a leader of the coup who's someone with military legitimacy, like the Secretary of Defense or the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Well, that takes you back to this open letter to General Mark Milley, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, saying that he should give the order to take down the government. And this article even went so far as to saying that they would have to physically secure the president, which I presume means either to capture or kill him, and that this could be done if it were done on a political holiday, and they could cut off Mar-a-Lago, where the president goes to rest, because it's on a peninsula, so it's very easy to cut off. So they went into a very deep discussion of this, and so there is plenty of talk about the use of military and a military coup, and I think it is a danger that we need to be aware of.
Yes. Well, you have some more questions? No?
Thank you.
Well, Senator, I'm sure whatever we're discussing here, my mind keeps on moving in such a way that everything here is almost surrealistic. Things that we never expected the most powerful country to be experiencing is experiencing something like that. But at the same time, it is experiencing something like this because it is the most powerful country in the world. There is
Well,
the deep state, as you had mentioned. Does it have faces? Does it have faces and leaders in there that the world must know and can identify?
well, you know, at this point, I don't think it's entirely clear that any decisions have been made to employ the military in this way. But I think that the groundwork has been laid in case they decide that they want to do this. And if you look at the statements by James Mattis, General James Mattis, where he's discussing with the Director of National Intelligence the possible need to take collective action against the president. If you look at these very threatening things being published openly in Defense One and other prominent publications, it's clear that this is sort of a plan B that is being actively discussed at the very highest levels. And part of our objective has been to shine the light on it, because it's very difficult to pull off a military coup if people are alerted to the possibility that one might occur.
Okay.
And so that's what we're trying to do. Now, we do know for a fact that George Soros has given $220 million to Black Lives Matter and other similar race-based organizations. And we do know that Black Lives Matter and Antifa have been prominent at all of the violent riots that have taken place. We know also, because I've personally seen that, I went to a gun show and I saw people coming to the gun show who normally wouldn't be. Usually the gun people tend to be sort of country people that, you know, they like shooting, they like pheasant shooting and all of this. And but I saw people wearing Black Lives Matter face masks coming in to buy high-powered weapons. So we know that at least some of them are arming themselves for a violent confrontation if necessary. I don't know how widespread that is, but I know that some of it is taking place. And we see, you know, when we see something like Portland, Oregon, where you've got riots that have gone on for months and months and months, someone has to pay. Those are very expensive to fund. You have to be able to put people up in hotels. You have to pay for their food, for their rent. You have to pay them because they've got to make some money. You've got to pay for their supplies. In many cases, with these riots, people from these organizations have ordered pallets of bricks sent so that they can be broken in half and they can be hurled at the police and injure and kill police if necessary. We know that all of these things have been going on, and you can't maintain those things for a lengthy period without a tremendous amount of funding. Now, ordinary people, working class people, like most of us, we don't have hundreds of millions of dollars. If we're contributing something, maybe we contribute $100 or $10 or $5, but that doesn't support people who are going to constitute almost a revolutionary army that you can keep in place for months and months and months. So you have mega billionaires who want to see the government disrupted, and then you have these very radical, very racist groups who are doing the violence, burning the buildings, beating innocent people, and so you have this very unholy alliance of the mega wealthy, the international financiers, for whom a few $billion is nothing. And then you have this other group, you have a very violent strain of racism going on in the United States now with in schools even they're teaching what they call critical race theory, which really boils down to just raw racist hatred against whites. And I have not seen that type of instruction take place in schools in any civilized country since the Nazis and the brown shirts were doing this against the Jews back in the 1920s and the 1930s. So it's been almost 100 years since we've seen the kind of raw racial hatred taught to school children in the schools. But it's happening here in the United States right now, and and it's woven into this. It's an attempt to destabilize our civilization, and ultimately there are international power brokers who want to see a one world government. They don't want sovereign countries, and the United States has always been a roadblock. We've had great independence, we've had great freedom here, and that has always irritated these people because we stand for our own country. We want our own country to succeed. I think countries are much better off being independent and sovereign. I would not want to see the Philippines or Thailand or any of these other countries simply be blended in where they have no voice, they don't even know who rules them. I think that's the objective of this one world order, is that the people will have no voice, no control over their own affairs, and they can be just controlled like farm animals. I don't want to see that.
Right. Well, we understand you very well, Senator Black, and we are, of course, the same feeling. And the only thing blocking these people, the deep state and those that want the one world government right now, is a guy named Donald Trump. We, as you know, we here in the Philippines, Itos and myself are part of the Philippine LaRouche Society. And together with the international organization, we promote peace and we look for solutions towards peace, despite the fact that there are such elements who want to destroy civilization, as you say. And we hope that somehow in this, as I was saying earlier, that if Trump wins, we would have bought another 4 years of peace. But if he loses, God knows what's going to happen next month or month after. Um, so if Trump does win, we're going to be looking forward to closer relations with the other superpowers, so that together they can probably lead the rest of the world towards a more peaceful and more economically prosperous world for all of us. Mr. Senator, it has been a brief 1 hour with you, and I would like to invite you again, if it's possible, to get to talk to you before the coming elections. We will try to schedule this if it's possible, Senator.
Okay, well, we will see if we can work out a schedule on that. But I appreciate it very much, and I want to send my best wishes to the people of the Philippines. I will tell you, I have a deep personal love and affection for the Philippine Islands, for the people there. It's just the strangest thing that among all of my friends, some of my very, very dearest friends have ended up being Filipinos here in the United States.
Right.
And they're a wonderful, warm people, and I do hope to get back one day and to visit the islands once again.
Oh, you let us know when you're ready. We'll be your hosts here, Senator Black. You want to say a last few words to our countrymen about the coming times?
Well, I know a bit of the struggles that the Philippines are going through. I know there's sort of a balancing act with the need for economic relations with China, and then the traditional relations with the United States, and I wish the government all the best in balancing that out and making it work. I want to see the very best for all of the Philippine people. They're wonderful people, and they deserve all of God's blessings.
Thank you very much, sir. And God
Okay, well,
bless.
thank you very much, and goodbye now.
Goodbye. Okay. Okay, yan na po ang ating kapanayam natin si General General Colonel Richard Black, former senator, state senator. Richard Black, napakarami niya pong naikwento sa atin. Sana po klaro ang dating niya sa ating Katipunan channel. Are there messages that we can read? Okay. Ito po mga comments. Kerwin Gordo, yung deep state po ba allied sa Democratic Party? As of now, parang ganyan ang nangyayari. Pero katulad ng sinabi ni Senator Black, yung deep state, ang kanilang layunin ay dali ng mundo sa isang one world government para ang soberenya ng mga bansa ay mawawala na, no? Sila na lang ang mamumuno sa buong mundo. Ito po ang layunin ng tinatawag niyang deep state. Grupo po yan ng mga iba-ibang mga sektor na matataas at mayayaman na tao. Nasa may-ari ng mga bangko, may-ari ng mga lalaking korporasyon, at mga militar din. No? At kinakailangan magmasid tayong mabuti at pagdasal natin. Sa akin po, hingin ko sa inyo, pagdasal natin si Donald Trump. Watching from Lipa City, si Rodolfo Del Mundo Perolino Jerry. Watching from San Jose del Monte, Bulacan. Bergie Ariola, gandang gabi po. Marisa Niegos, I'm watching from Rosales, Pangasinan. Marie Oishi, sir, about the kaguluhan in the House of Representatives, I would like to hear a comment from you, Sir Butch. Maraming salamat po. Ay alam mo po yan ang ang away niyan ay politika. Ang yung isa gusto niyang gamitin ang pagka-speakership niya para maghanda siya dahil gusto niyang tumakbo either as Vice President or President. Yung isa naman, pinangakuan nila nung ibang, kasi ang may hawak dyan po, tandaan niyo po, ang Committee on Energy ang hawak po ni Velasco. Ang Committee on Energy po, ang lahat ng mga oligarko na nakikinabang sa atin, no? At kumukolekta ng napakataas na halaga ng kuryente, pinakamataas po sa buong mundo, no? Ay medyo impluensya dyan si Velasco, no? At ang gusto nila, umakyat pa siya sa pagka-speakership para lalong makontrol nila ng mga oligarko itong sitwasyon natin. Kanya ito po mga palagay ko lang, mga layunin nila. Ang ninong po ni Velasco ay walang iba kundi si Ramon Ang. Ninong niya sa kasal, ninong din sa binyag. No? Ramon Ang, alam niyo po, isa po siyang oligarko kasama ang nasa kuryente at iba pa, nasa tollways at iba pang mga negosyo. Kasama po dyan yung mga ibang oligarko. Glenn Buan, if Trump does not want any more wars, why is he still insisting on more economic sanctions against Iran, Syria, Venezuela, etc.? Why is he going against the Russian pipeline project? Why is he not stopping continued encroachment to territories by U.S. pipelines? Alam niyo po, there's a lot of things that are reasons for this that we cannot fully understand, nor can we make conclusions that it is with President Trump's instruction. Kasi po meron siyang tinatawag na Secretary of State na Secretary Pompeo. Kadalasan po taliwas ang ginagawa ni Secretary Pompeo dito sa kautusan at ang kagustuhan ni President Trump. Paano nangyari yon kung under si Pompeo kay Trump? Ang akin pong akahaka lang dyan, si Pompeo po ay tauhan ng Republican Party. At si Trump po ay by convenience siya ang naging presidente ng Republican Party. Pero hindi po siya tunay na politiko. Si Pompeo po, pag tinanggal ni Trump si Pompeo, Secretary of State Pompeo, pwedeng magkaproblema si Trump sa suporta niya sa Republican Party. Lalong-lalo na ngayon ay malapit na ang eleksyon, not sa election year. I am confident that Trump will do something about Pompeo when he becomes president again. Reggie Maloyon Avenido, good evening, Sir Butch, Sir Itos. Virginia Malonzo, good evening, mga sirs. Di po ma-share dito sa FB groups. Alfredo Radina, good to listen to him. Alfredo Radina, Trump exec order to protect the unborn and newborn babies and defund Planned Parenthood. Bring back soldiers from Afghanistan by Christmas. Pro-life and anti-war is the Donald. Evelyn Amura watching from San Pedro Laguna. Giancarlo Iway, good evening. What can you say about this? This talks about hydroxychloroquine. Yeah. Cherry Lead, good evening po sa inyo. Ben Danay from FDA website. No qualified virus isolates of the 2009 nCoV are currently available. Matt Saint, hello, Professor and Ethos. Where is Senator Richard Black? Is he showing up tonight? RJ Avellana, mabuhay. Buhay, RJ. Dario Padilla, swamp, stagnant body of water. Stagnant body of water. Edna Legaspina, watching from Makati. Correct, Philippine politicians even are like swamp beneath his pusali. Radio Redina, remember Seth Rich and Clinton Cash, the movie in 2016. Radio Redina, Edward Snowden, assisted by WikiLeaks and hidden by Hong Kongers until asylum in Russia, spying on Americans and done by CIA and NSA-linked military Hillary emails bot.
Rodvite Pariabas, good evening po Katipunan. Problemado si Duterte sa mga basura ng gobyerno, lalo na sa Congress. Bakit ayaw niya gamitin ng emergency power? Dahil nasa state of emergency tayo dahil may pandemic. Watching from Subic, Valdes. Right. Cesar Soberano, good evening and mabuhay to our living heroes in KDP, always for the true Filipino people. Bienvenido, Lord, kaya mabuhay kayong dalawa, Butch and Ethos. Please divulge everything that can destroy America, the Philippines, and the whole world. Alfredo Redina, stand down where U.S. soldiers and ambassador died in Benghazi. Now, film of the story was twisted. Remember when Trump went out of the hospital? Avenger music in the background, meaning return with a vengeance. Tama. Carwin Gordo, parang kasama yata si Soros dyan na gusto ng One World Order. Ayun na nga.
Yun na nga sinabi kanina ni Senator Black.
Yeah. Dati pa yan, si Soros, kasama yan. Teresita Gaviola, mabuhay po kayo kay Butch, nawa bigyan niyo po kayo ng mahabang buhay upang marami po kayong matulungan tungo sa aming kaalaman mula sa inyo. Nicole Santos, God bless President Trump. Yes. Datu Oski Mohammed, I see whoever is the president after the forthcoming election, U.S. government still as it is. Christopher Cruz, go, Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. Elmer Ecleo, Solidarity Forever. Rain, Sir Butch, sabi ni IATF, pinapayagan na lumabas mga senior citizen. Kaya dapat balik na kayo sa DZXL studio. Yeah.
Oh, pero yung IATF, pinapayagan na po mga senior citizen. Tatanong ko po sa mga anak ko kung pwede na akong lumabas.
Hindi pa pwede. Alfredo Redina, chaos creation by globalists, and in the end, they are the savior. Kuno. Just like the speakership, oligarchs are behind the delay, and the end is they are the savior. Despotism, declassification must happen now. I guess Freddy is talking about the declass of all the emails and Kerwin Gordo. Excuse me. Kerwin Gordo. Parang na-stage yung mga pagpatay ng mga blacks para magkagulo. Actually, Kerwin, if you do more research, no, lahat ng recent, kasi yung Black Lives Matter po, dati pa yan eh. So, lumitaw yan 2016 pa. But nabuhay ulit yan kasi election year, and parang may timing sila na pag may binaril o magra-riot sila. Pero yung mga pinatay po o nakaaway yung mga pulis ay may criminal records. Lahat po yan may criminal records. So if we do more research, we will see. Marisa Camba, Senator Black rocks. Watching from Hong Kong. Yes, he does. Ben Buwan, is the pandemic part of the plan of the Coup plotters? Yun na nga sabi ni Chairman kanina, whatever the plan is, if this COVID was intentionally released or is natural, definitely the hype and the scare is unnatural. Okay, so they are using this as to further their own interest. Teddy Gratella, mabuhay kayo mga idol. Dami ko natutunan sa inyo. God bless. God bless rin. Eric Bautista watching. God bless. God bless you. Radio Edina, cheer Senator Black. Use North Korea talks again if Trump wins. A good thing. Yeah, thank you. Sa lahat ng comment tonight, thank you very much. Overtime na overtime, but good. Good.
Yung extra ka.
Yes, may
Yeah.
extra.
Etong maraming pong salamat at sana po meron tayong natutunan kay Senator Black
Yeah.
at marami po siyang naibahagi sa atin. Please treat this very seriously.
Yes.
This is not just additional news.
Mhm.
No? This will have an impact on our lives. No? Because anything happening to the world's biggest economy and the most powerful nation, no, will have an effect on our lives.
Also, please do your own research. Diba?
Yes.
Mag-research po tayo lahat. Yun lang ang laban natin sa mga fake news and disinformation.
Right.
Yun lang po.
Sa ngalan po ng ating mga katipon dito sa Ating Katipunan at sa mga galing na staff ng DCXL Radio Mo Nationwide, kami po ay pansamantalang nagpapaalam at nagpapasalamat na sinamahan nyo kami ngayon ng Ora de Peligro ng ating bayan at ng buong mundo dito po sa Ating Katipunan. Hanggang sa linggo po muli, mga katipon dito sa Katipunan Channel, 7 to 9 p.m. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.